Hey everyone, how's it going? So last time what we did is get the modal showing the post you're replying to when it opens, like this. So what we'll do now is work on getting the submit button actually working. So currently when we type, the submit button enables, but it doesn't do anything. So what we're going to do is get that working now. And we have this part here, this click handler for the submit post button, but that's the one used here. That's this submit post button. So the modals have their own button, and it's got the ID. I think it's submit reply button. Let me just check. The submit reply button, yeah. So we're going to take this ID right here, submit reply button, and just add that onto the event handler. So after submit post button, we're going to also check for submit reply button. So this has now attached this click handler to both of those elements. So when any one of those is pressed, it will fire this. So in its current state, if we press the submit reply button, it will execute this. But we need to make some changes though before it sends the reply to the server. So the text box is going to be our reply text box. At the moment, that is the text box for the new post. So that's this one right here. But we want it to be the text box of our post right here. Okay. So this has got its own ID. If I inspect, you can see. So this text area has the ID reply text area. So let's go ahead and use that. But before we do, we want to know whether we're in a modal or not. And we've done this already before. We did this, if you scroll down to the, I forget which function it was. If I just search is modal here, you'll see it get to here. So yeah, we have this part right here where we check if it's a modal, and we just conditionally set the submit button in this case to be one of two different elements. So we're going to do something extremely similar. So I'm going to take this whole part right here, this is modal part, and I'll paste that into this part. So underneath the button declaration, I'll paste that in there. And text box is going to be button instead. So is modal will now be true or false based on whether we're in the modal or not. So what I'll do next is conditionally set this text box. So we're going to say is modal and then question mark. And if it is a modal, we want to use our element from the modal. If it's not, we want to use this one. So I may as well just copy this and paste it and then put a colon. So I've just copied that twice now, but I'm going to replace the ID with the one from our modal. So the text area has got the ID reply text area. So I'll take that and I will put it in here. So we've just said if it's a modal, then set the text box to be the text area from the modal. Otherwise, we're going to use the text area for our, the one that's not in the modal. Okay, great. We know whether in a modal and we've got the right text box. Now there's one more thing to do before we send this to the server. I'm going to do an if statement and say if is modal. And then in there, what we want to do is get the ID of the post that we're replying to, and then we're going to add that to this data object right here before we send the response. So how do we get the ID of the post we're replying to? Well, at the moment we don't have it, so we actually have to do something before we can get it. Now don't worry, it's actually really easy. If I scroll up to here, not there actually, where do we want to go? On the open event, so the one that runs when the modal opens. We have the ID here, so all we're going to do is attach this to the submit button. Remember, this is called when the modal is opened, so we're going to say $, and then the ID we're going to check is reply. Man, I already forgot it. I've looked at it about 3 times today. Reply, no, that's not it. Submit reply button. Okay, hopefully that'll be the last time I have to check that. Submit reply button, and then we'll say .data, and then in there, the data attribute we want to set is just ID. And then the value is going to be post ID. So now what's going to happen is when you open this modal, you're going to see the ID on the button. So we can just test it out. So if I refresh the page, as soon as I open one of these, let's open this one. If I inspect, right click on here, and then go and find the button, you should see a data ID, do you? Nope, you don't see anything. Why don't we see anything? I don't know why we're not seeing it. What I'm going to do is set a breakpoint, as we always do when we can't find the problem. So we'll scroll down and find that code we just ran, this one here. I'll set a breakpoint there. So of course this should run when we open the modal. So do we have an ID? That's got the ID. So why is that not showing that? Why doesn't that have the ID attached to it? I'll go to the console. I've just copied that. So there's our object. If I press enter, it should show me this. So where is the data attributes there? Oh, what I can do is actually I can do that again. So there, and then dot data, and give me the data attribute. Oops, my bad. Okay, we have it. Why is it not there? Oh wait, I remember why actually. The data method right here actually stores the results in jQuery's cache, so it doesn't actually store them on the element itself. Now, when it initializes, I believe it initializes using any of the attributes that are set. But when you write new ones, so like we're doing now, we're adding new data IDs. It stores it in the cache itself. If we wanted it to actually be visible on the object in the elements tree, we would have to actually change it on attribute like this. We'd have to say data dash ID and do it this way. When we do it this way, like I said, it's storing it in jQuery's cache, not storing it on the element. Long story short, it doesn't matter. It's actually set. You just won't see it on the document tree. So that's okay. So what we'll do is back in here in our submit reply button event handler, in the if statement for isModal, we should now have the ID. Well, at least we can get it. We can say var ID equals button dot data dot ID like this. And to verify this, we can even do a check. We can say if ID equals null, then we're going to return alert button ID is null. This will just help us, if we do run into this, we'll know exactly where to look for debugging purposes. And then we'll just say data dot reply to equals and then ID. And there you go. We should now be sending the reply to part to the server. Okay, so rather than just sending content, we'll also have reply to in there as well, and then on the server we can use it. So what I would do is go to the server real quick so we can test this out. And in here, what we'll do, just to verify that it works, we'll just say if rec.body.reply to, then we'll just say console.log rec.body.reply to. So we'll log the ID we've got, and then what I'll do after that is just let's just send a 400 back just for now, just so it doesn't go any further. Oh, I have to return there as well. Return that. Okay. Let's try this out. So now when I submit a reply using our modal, we should hit this. Obviously, we'll see a 400 error for now, but that's fine. We're just verifying the ID for now. So let's refresh the page and log in, and let's try this out. So if I need to get rid of my breakpoint. Let me play that again. Okay. Hi. So I did that. But we obviously get our error. That's fine. We knew we'd get that. And then we can see the ID. So it's worked. We've got the ID. And just to verify that that is the correct ID, I can copy that. Go to here. I'll close that down. And go to the post that we were replying to. And just make sure it matches the data ID there. So if I do a Control F and search. Yeah, you can see it works. So it's the correct ID.